ask them, hey, like, what's best case scenario
Okay.
from your goals and what you're trying to do? Walk us through what would be best case scenario for you. They would say, well, I don't need to have appreciation, but I want to get it in its way, right? I want to, as part of the long term vision.
Yeah.
I want to be in an area that's a class community that is going to attract high quality tenants. Well, it needs to cash flow. I don't want to be funding a property. I want to make sure cash flows very well, and I want to be in an area that is obviously growing and that's going to be continue to be attractive as time goes on. And so, one of the markets that checks off all of those boxes is Cape Coral. Cape Coral is a dynamic market, and the growth is obvious, and the appeal of people wanting to live here is also very obvious. Current population around 200,000, scheduled to hit 400,000 in the next 25 years. Roads are already built in, power lines are already up. It's full fledged development mode. It's also the number one destination for people leaving Chicago is Cape Coral, and it has more canals or waterways than Venice does. So it
Yeah.
is a boater's paradise. And you have a lot of the same amenities that some of the more expensive markets that are nearby, like Sarasota and Naples, have off of a highway, near beaches, higher quality areas. So it has that trifecta. The only reason why it's cheap now is because it's currently being developed, but it's not going to be have available land for long, which is why, like, I've invested in Cape Coral. I currently live in Cape Coral. For me, this is the most obvious place to like bank on. Like, I'm going to put three times the chips into this market that I'll put anywhere else, just because the appeal and the growth is just so obvious.
And that's a key point there. And I appreciate you talking about like Cape Coral is still in development. So when you go Google Cape Coral and you've got someone talking, the sky is falling, the Cape Coral real estate market, there's a lot of inventory right now. Yeah, it's currently in development. This is sort of a natural growth for a developing market is development is ramping up and then it'll kind of cut back a little bit and then it'll ramp up again. This is how markets grow. And I think Cape Coral, southwest Gulf Coast of Florida, beautiful part of this state. It's the smart investors are still focused on Cape Coral and investing heavily in Cape Coral because coming out of this current kind of push for development, and Alvin, you know this well, this current push of development, there's not a lot coming on the back end of that development because again, this is the natural ebb and flow of how cities are built.
100%. And Cape Coral, if you spend time here, you it's nice. Like, whenever
Yeah.
you have like if someone thinks about like how to make living in Florida make sense, take them to Cape Coral, and it becomes fairly obvious, right? It becomes very easy. So
Mhm.
when you have A schools throughout, when I don't live in a multi-million dollar house, but there's some just down the street from where I am. You're having an area that even the tourists we get tourists in Cape Coral, but they are the nice, the most pleasant, and they just want to be a local when they're here. They want to go bike riding, they want to enjoy a pool home, they want to travel, see the sights. It's a pleasant place. It's not as congested as other markets in the East Coast, and it has that small time charm to it. Or if you're driving around, it's fairly normal to like wave to your neighbors to kind of have that acknowledgement of other people, and it definitely has more of that Midwestern feel. Versus, I
Yeah.
think that the East Coast feels more like a New York or Boston kind of feel. Here in Southwest Florida, it's much more Midwestern. We have a just-in-time culture. We're not late like Miami, but and it's a very good business climate. And so we're able to make cash flow, get long-term appreciation. The growth is fairly obvious, and I'm going to continue to invest in this market myself.
Yeah, when you think about the Gulf Coast, I think, Southwest Florida, the Cape Coral area, it is that sort of namesake coastal small town feel. Then you go up and you kind of go up to, people might call it the armpit, but you go up to the panhandle of Florida, and it's nice too, but it doesn't have that same kind of, it kind of feels almost like a port town, right? Like it feels a little different. It's not that kind of coastal, light, airy environment that Cape Coral offers. So, many of the individuals that are renting, they want to, they'll choose Cape Coral, they'll choose Southwest over the Northwest part of Florida. And same with our investors. I mean, when we're talking with our builders, all of our builders, and we're looking at markets and talking about strategy around markets, Southwest Florida, it still has so much more room to grow. It doesn't grow it doesn't grow endlessly, right? But it still has that ability. You can see the growth. Like you said, it's going to double in size in the next 20-25 years. That's a good sign. That's a sign of confidence if you're an investor looking at new construction investment, possibly holding for 10 years, plus or minus 2 or 3 years. That's two cycles, right? That's when you really think about it, that's two investment cycles on a new construction inventory business model. That's a pretty compelling business case to make for your kind of 20-year vision for how you want to approach investment. Look at Southwest Florida.
And Cape Coral is a newer city. It only has 50 years of existence. And so one of the things we're starting to see now is a lot more bigger homes are being built here. It is obviously an A-class community. So your parks are going to be a little bit nicer. Your school is going to be a little bit nicer. And the city is growing for this emerging A-class community. We will eventually be more like a Naples and a Sarasota. And because it's in a peninsula, either you're in Cape Coral or you're not. There will be a big difference between what's happening here and what's happening anywhere else. And we're already seeing, even though we still have land that can be developed, we're seeing older homes being knocked down and being rebuilt with nicer homes on top of them. It's already taken place. So the older inventory isn't gonna be a small little junker. It's gonna be knocked down, and again, A class throughout. The city's in line with that. The residents are going in that direction. Builders are building as a result. A class properties. So an appreciation play, absolutely. And if you can cash flow day one and take advantage of that long term appreciation, it becomes a no brainer.
So, Alvin, this is, we talk to so many investors. We talk about Southwest Florida. I would say 98% of our new investors who are exploring Florida, the question, well, what about hurricanes, Alvin? What about hurricanes in Southwest Florida? And I think, and I'd love to hear you talk about it. But again, this is that advantage of new construction. This is that advantage of investing in new construction, in new infrastructure, relatively new infrastructure for the state of Florida. There's certain advantages that go with investing intelligently in an area like Cape Coral, even with the looming reality of, yes, one day there could be a hurricane that hits this area.
Yeah, the two questions I get most often from out-of-state investors investing in Florida is about the alligators. People are worried about alligators. They don't taste that bad. It tastes pretty good. So I wouldn't be worried about the alligators, right?
Don't eat the pythons, but yeah, the alligators you
We
can eat.
have good gator bites here in Florida. I wouldn't be so afraid of the alligators. And the other part is the hurricane. And so I always kind of jokingly make this comment, but it's true. The worst hurricane I've ever experienced in my entire life was when I lived in New Jersey. That was Hurricane Sandy, the worst hurricane I ever had in New Jersey. So there isn't a place that we can point to in this country that doesn't have some type of environmental concerns. And so for Florida, hurricanes is one of them, which is rightfully so. And so a lot of it starts with where we're looking to buy. So if you look at what happened with the last hurricane damage, yeah, the Bear Islands got hit hard. I would happily, like, if someone was debating whether we should even develop the Barrier Islands, I might be on their side, right? Maybe we should just leave and preserve those lands and not build houses on them. I agree. But those areas are so obviously going to be negatively impacted by hurricane. People who built there took a huge risk. It's obvious there. The news coverage always shows those areas. So what we're trying to say is when we look at the best areas, we're looking for areas that are coastal, so close to the beach, have all the advantages of being near the water, but a little bit further away from an insurance perspective. So we don't recommend buying in a flood zone. A flood zone is a additional insurance cost you're going to have that you can't pass on to your renter. Don't do that. The other thing is when you buy new construction homes, the home's elevation is going to be higher. On average, they're going to be between 5 and 8 feet above the street level. So
Required to be, right?
correct. Yeah, yeah, correct. And so when we're not building in flood zones, we're away from them. I admit that they're a dumb investment to buy in a flood zone. So we're avoiding those areas. We're also going newer build based on newer codes. And what you're going to find is your insurance rates are also going to be a lot cheaper as a result of it.
Yeah.
So on average, a new construction home, the insurance rate is going to be 70% of an older house. One of the reasons is you're going to automatically qualify for wood mitigation discounts. So there's no need to do a 4-point inspection. Just the fact that the house is brand new already gets you those wind mitigation discounts. You're also going to have newer windows, newer doors. Everything's going to be brand new and built to the latest code. And one of the things people don't often think about is your water heater is a huge insurance risk. That if you just have a house with a 10-year-old water heater, there's some insurance companies that will deny you just for that. So when you do a new construction home, you have a longer time horizon before you have to switch out any of these things, or
Yep.
before you get priced in the same rates as an existing home. The other thing from a newer home is that there aren't any claims on that property. So, for example, if you have a 10-year-old home, guaranteed there's at least one insurance claim on it. When you have a new construction property, there are no claims history because it's brand new. Nothing has been done to the house. So it gives you even further insurance from that perspective.